Here are 8 players with sneaky upside in Week 17 that can help you take home your fantasy championship. Hey, before I get to those players, let me remind you, if you haven't tried Underdog Fantasy, this is a great time because they're going to give all new customers this Dak Prescott special on Saturday night. He just needs to go higher than half a yard. You take that pick, you pair it with any other pick or picks you like, and you could potentially 20x your money. In fact, you could 20x their money because if you join now using promo code ENDGAME, they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. Take the free money they give you, put it on the Dak Prescott pick, and potentially 20x it. Let's start at running back, and if you're looking for running back help this week, go ahead and look at Najee Harris. He's got a great matchup this week against the Seattle Seahawks. They're giving up the 6th most fantasy points to running backs, and when you look at Najee Harris over the last 8 games, he's had at least 12 carries in all of those games, and he's had 15 or more carries in 5 of those games. Not to mention, when you look at him versus Jaylen Warren, Najee Harris is the guy you want if you want a touchdown because he has double the red zone rushing attempts and double the attempts inside the 5-yard line. For as excited as we got about Jaylen Warren there for a brief stretch in the middle of the season, this is still clearly Najee Harris's backfield. He's the number 1 guy, and in this matchup, he definitely has a chance to score because not only are Seattle giving up a ton of points to running backs, they're giving up the 4th most touchdowns to running backs. And with Mason Rudolph under center, this offense actually looked kind of good. I don't expect them to be as good as they were last week, but they at least look good enough. So if you're looking for an RB2 with touchdown upside, look at Najee Harris. He's got a great matchup this week. He gets the opportunities near the goal line. I think he finds the end zone again in Week 17. And even though Ty Chandler absolutely burned you last week, you should look at Ty Chandler again this week. Look, if you were on our start-sit shows this week, we told almost everybody, don't start Ty Chandler. This is a brutal spot for Ty Chandler. And at first it looked great, right? He scored, and it's like, ha, 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 you should have started Ty Chandler. And then he did absolutely nothing. 17 total yards last week. 7 fantasy points with a touchdown. That is hard to do. But I think this week you can feel good about Ty Chandler again because they're going back home and they're playing the Green Bay Packers, who are allowing the 9th most fantasy points to running backs. This Green Bay defense has not been very good. Seems like every week a running back is scoring a touchdown against them. You got to feel much better about Ty Chandler this week at home in this matchup against Green Bay. And even though Alexander Mattison returned last week, he only played 9% of the snaps. I doubt we see Alexander Mattison get even over 30% of the snaps this week. It will still be Ty Chandler's backfield. He's had 2 really good games this year against Denver and Cincinnati, both bottom 10 run defenses. Ty Chandler is the type of guy you only want to play in great matchups, and guess what? He gets a great matchup this week. So if you picked him up, you rolled him out in Week 15, he helped you, and then he killed you last week, go ahead, roll him out again. He should come through this week. Now, wide receiver, if you're looking for an upside home run play, I think you need to look at Rashid Shaheed of the New Orleans Saints. Had 5 catches for 70 yards and a touchdown last week. He's clearly the number 2 target here behind Chris Olave with Michael Thomas out, and it already sounds like we're not going to see Michael Thomas probably the rest of the season, to be honest. But you got to love Shaheed this week, not only for his big play upside, but because he gets to face the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They are allowing the 4th most points to wide receivers. They are one of the worst secondaries here, and this game has sneaky shootout potential. Neither of these teams can really run the ball. Tampa Bay, even for as good as Rachaad White has been, not a good running team, and Alvin Kamara has been horrible running the football. This could be a game where both teams just throw the ball a ton, and that means Rashid Shaheed should have tons of chances in this game to hit a home run, score a touchdown, make a big play. This is the exact type of guy you want to put in your lineup in Week 17 if you're dealing with injuries at the wide receiver position and you need upside. And I also think Tyler Lockett is the exact type of wide receiver you want to play this week when you're looking for upside. Had 8 catches for 81 yards last week with Geno Smith healthy. Now gets a great matchup this week at home against the Pittsburgh Steelers, who have not been very good really on defense at all this year. And when you look at the Seattle Seahawks wide receivers and their matchups versus the kind of coverage the Steelers use, Tyler Lockett is in the best spot. He actually has a plus 3% coverage grade, which means you should expect him to produce at 3% higher than he normally does. Whereas DK Metcalf is at minus 9 and Jackson Smith and Jigba is barely under 1. Tyler Lockett has a great matchup this week. He was the leading target, the leading receiver for the Seahawks last week with Geno Smith back. I think he's going to do it again in Week 17. And it's like people have just completely forgotten about this guy. He has the type of upside this week that can win your matchup. Now at QB, Jordan Love also has a type of upside that can win your matchup. In the last 6 games, he has 15 touchdowns and only 3 interceptions. He's looked great. And look, last week, I was cautioning people, like, I don't know about Jordan Love. It's on the road against the Panthers. The Panthers play so slow, but he came through a rushing touchdown, 2 passing touchdowns. Even with all his weapons banged up, it hasn't seemed to matter. He is coming through week after week. No reason to think he won't come through this week against the Vikings. Yes, the Vikings defense has been better, but they don't scare me, and it doesn't scare me that he's on the road either. They're in the dome. You don't have to worry about weather. This is another game that could turn into a high-scoring shootout because the Vikings are a team that play fast, throw the ball, and they have weapons. So this could be another very high-scoring game. Jordan Love could easily throw for 2+ touchdowns in this one again. With or without all his weapons healthy, it doesn't seem to matter. Jordan Love coming through every single week right now. And don't look now, but Derek Carr is also coming through. 6 touchdowns and only 1 interception in the last 2 games. And it wasn't like he had great matchups in those games either. Last week against the Rams, a tough defense. The week before against the Panthers, I talked about them. Now he does get a great matchup on the road against the Bucs. I just got done talking about this secondary, how bad it is, how this game has sneaky shootout potential. The worry here with Derek Carr is it seems like every time I'm ready to recommend Derek Carr, he crushes me. He goes out there and throws, 3 interceptions, no touchdowns, and absolutely murders your week. But I'm willing to jump in again because he's been good the last 2 weeks, and it's such a great spot. So if you're looking for a QB, if you're streaming QB still, I think Derek Carr has to be one of the better starts this week. And then at tight end, I think Tucker Kraft has to be one of the better starts this week. He's had 57 or more yards in 3 straight games, 60 or more yards in 2 of those games. And I already talked about it with Jordan Love. Jordan Love is playing great, and all these Packers wide receivers are banged up. Are we going to see Christian Watson? Are we going to see Jaden Reed? Even Dontavian Wicks caught a touchdown and then left with a chest injury. Are we going to see him this week? Jordan Love is going to have to throw it to somebody, and Tucker Kraft has actually been good. And this is a guy who does have touchdown upside. Even though the Vikings aren't a smash matchup for tight ends, they're not a matchup that scares me either. I think Tucker Kraft, if you're looking streaming tight end, maybe you lost TJ Hawkinson, you're going to the waiver wire, you're looking for tight end. If Tucker Kraft is still out there, he's one of my favorites. And if you need to go a little bit deeper, I also like Gerald Everett. Now, it's never fun recommending Gerald Everett because he's kind of like the Derek Carr of tight ends. Every time I'm in on Gerald Everett, he completely busts. But you got to like him this week for 2 reasons. Number 1, the matchup, going against the Denver Broncos. Not only are they allowing the most points to tight ends this year, they've allowed the most touchdowns to tight end this year. This is a guy we know he has touchdown upside on any given week. Going against the defense giving up the most touchdowns to tight ends, yeah, I think he has a chance to score this week. What I also like, though, is that Easton Stick actually looked serviceable last week after that terrible first game against the Raiders where he did all his damage in absolute garbage time. Last week, he actually looked pretty good against the Bills. He moved the ball. He made throws. Now, he wasn't exceptional, but he was at least good enough. And when you look at this Chargers receiving group, I mean, maybe we'll see Keenan Allen this week. And then what do you got? Josh Palmer, Quentin Johnston, Jalen Guyton. There's not a lot here. It's not hard to see Gerald Everett getting enough targets in this game, getting a chance to score against this defense. So again, if you lost TJ Hawkinson or you're just streaming tight end and you need to go a little deeper, take a look at Gerald Everett. And also make sure you take a look at our Week 17 playlist to help you take home the championship. Everything you need, who to grab off the waivers, who to start, who to sit, who could boom. Check it out. We got you covered. Everything you need right here.